Earnings season kicking into high gear this week. We will hear from most of the technology titans. Big consumer names will give us a better look at the inflation story as well. Kimberly-Clark will reported yesterday, missing its expectations. Management there saying that there are plans to raise prices for the second time this year due to the significant inflation. The stock is down 0.25% this morning. Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeting that in the short term, we are seeing strong inflationary pressure. Joining me right now is Kyriba senior strategist Wolfgang Koester. Also joining the conversation all morning long this morning is Fox Business's Dagan McDowell and Forbes Media chairman and former presidential candidate Steve Forbes. Wolfgang, thanks so much for joining the conversation. It's great to see everybody this morning. What do you make of the current state of inflation? Are you expecting that to cut into the earnings story?
Well, I think that inflation is an issue, and it has been, and it's actually an increasing problem. I think we're going to see further inflation in this area. So that will impact earnings, but not all negative. I mean, at one time, asset managers are looking at these as an opportunity to, quite frankly, hedge the equities, being a good hedge against inflation, given that the revenues are going to come up, et cetera. So that's what we're actually seeing. So, but the issue there is what companies are actually going to get through this other problem, supply chain finance, which is actually accelerating inflations. And that's what we're really looking at. And you saw Kimberly-Clark coming out with the announcement regarding inflation. I actually think that part of that acceleration of inflation, the core of that is actually the supply chain finance, the supply chain problem and the financing thereof and what the corporations have to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's an issue that I want to zero in on this morning because we've got all these technology names reporting earnings tonight. Texas Instruments and AMD, they are right there, you know, at the nucleus of what's going on with this chip shortage. Are we going to see disappointments from big tech when they report after the close tonight? What's your take on the impact?
Well, I think on some of them, like an AMD, you could see that. What we look for is how they're actually managing the liquidity through that part. So we actually think that Microsoft's going to come out looking quite good. But I think the chip shortage is a real issue. On the Microsoft part, not as much. They're much more on the software part. So you got to look at how are they looking at financing the supply chains and therefore keeping the producers open. In the technology, not a big issue. Therefore, we remain quite bullish that the companies that know how to manage the liquidity and the supply chain accordingly will actually do very well. So we expect some good earnings out of those companies.
Well, we'll see. I mean, even though we've had so much negative conversation around Facebook, the company reported strong numbers, even if, you know, they're talking about a slowdown, and the stock is up this morning. So you may be right there onto something. Let me ask you about the Federal Reserve, because we are about a week away from the next Fed meeting, and a lot of people have told me that this upcoming statement for the November meeting is going to be incredibly important. The officials are poised to start the tapering, Wolfgang, as you know. What's your take on what the Fed may do and whether or not that's priced into the market right now?
I think that what's priced in the market right now, that they're expecting some tapering of the stimulus, and they're very worried about inflation. Now, Jerome Powell has earlier said not too worried about the inflation because it is temporary, because you have the backlog and then we're going to come back off. I'm not sure I would agree with that. I think that we do have some inflationary pressures, and we're going to continue to see those, and companies need to be able to act on that. What we, I think, all can agree is that whatever the Fed's going to come out with, think about all the news you just already reported this morning, is we're going to have volatility. And volatility is really an issue for corporations to really manage through from a financial volatility point of view. And so the investor community is going to look at what companies manage liquidity and manage this volatility well. Look at what the dollar did last quarter. You saw a lot of tailwinds coming in because you saw a weakening of the dollar. Well, that's turned around and now has a significant strength in the dollar. We actually anticipate that, given what the Fed's doing, that this could actually continue to support the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I was getting at is things have changed since the last Fed meeting, Wolfgang. Things have slowed down. Look at the Atlanta Federal Reserve taking their expectations for the third quarter all the way up from 6% down to 0.5% growth. Does that change what the Fed is going to do? And then you've got the cryptocurrency story. MasterCard and cryptocurrency firm Bakkt announcing a major partnership. This will allow banks to issue debit or credit cards that let people pay in Bitcoin and earn crypto as rewards. I guess, you know, the movement in terms of the digital economy picks up speed.
Absolutely, it does, and this definitely is a sign of the expansion of the crypto market, especially from business and C2C, consumer to consumer. So you're seeing that expansion there. Companies like Bakkt doing very well, other companies like XBTO doing very well, because they're actually starting to think about how do we create products around the core of a Bitcoin or an Ether, etc. And that MasterCard is doing it, no surprise at all. You're going to see moves like from Visa and American Express doing exactly the same thing. They have to. They're in that business. What's interesting for corporates is they're still quite hesitant to actually use it to prepaid or pay because of the volatility that they have. But you absolutely are seeing a increase in the crypto wallets, the crypto market, and you're going to see much more conversations about from Yellen and Jerome Powell and many other governments. I think about 80% of governments are thinking about issuing their own digital currency, what's referred to as a CBDC, as you well know, central bank digital currency. So you're going to see an absolute expansion of the digital currency market.
Yeah, we'll see if that topic comes up in this next Fed meeting in about a week, Wolfgang. Yeah. Thanks so much for being here. Great conversation with you, and we love seeing you this morning, so thank you. Wolfgang Koester joining us this morning on investing and markets, with the market up in the triple digits this morning.